The war did not end with victory or defeat alone. It left the Horn of Africa suspended between two worlds, between empire and resistance, between memory and power. Abyssinia and Adal were forever changed, not just by steel, but by belief, diplomacy, and the choices made in survival's shadow. The war did not erase Abyssinia, nor did it elevate Adal into permanence. Instead, it left the Horn of Africa suspended between two enduring forces, faith and power. Geography had always shaped this land, but now memory did as well. Highlands and lowlands, coasts and interiors, mosques and churches stood not as isolated worlds, but as neighbors marked by shared trauma. The conflict had proven that domination was temporary, but coexistence unavoidable. Neither side could claim absolute control, yet neither vanished. What emerged was a region no longer defined by a single authority, but by a fragile balance, maintained not by swords alone, but by restraint, negotiation, and vigilance. Faith survived the war, but it did not remain unchanged. Islam and Christianity emerged hardened by loss, reorganized by necessity, and deeply aware of their political weight. Mosques and churches became more than places of worship. They became anchors of identity. Belief was no longer only spiritual, it was strategic. Leaders learned that faith could mobilize armies, but it could also stabilize communities once the fighting ceased. The war taught both sides that belief could unite, but could also fracture societies beyond repair if wielded recklessly. In its aftermath, faith became a language of endurance rather than expansion. As open warfare faded, diplomacy took its place, uneasy, cautious, and never complete. Treaties were spoken more often than trusted. Alliances shifted as foreign powers observed closely, measuring influence in a wounded land. Abyssinia and Adal understood that survival no longer depended solely on battlefield strength, but on negotiation, trade, and restraint. Borders softened even as identities sharpened. Conflict did not disappear. It transformed. Power learned to move quietly, through envoys instead of armies, through leverage instead of fire. What followed was not peace, but a managed tension, sustained through words where steel had failed. Resistance did not end when armies disbanded. It simply changed form. Culture, scholarship, trade, and memory became new battlegrounds. Stories preserved what borders could not. Languages carried identity across generations. Scholars, merchants, and elders guarded continuity where soldiers once stood watch. This quieter resistance was less visible, but far more enduring. It shaped how communities understood themselves long after the war faded from living memory. Power no longer marched openly. It embedded itself in education, ritual, and collective remembrance. The Horn learned that survival did not always require confrontation. Sometimes it required preservation. The true legacy of the war was not measured in territory gained or lost, but in transformation. The Horn of Africa emerged neither unified nor destroyed, but altered in its understanding of power. Empires learned their limits. Communities learned their strength. The conflict reshaped diplomacy, redefined faith's role in governance, and revealed memory as a strategic force. What endured was not dominance, but adaptation. The war rewrote how societies navigated difference, sometimes uneasily, sometimes wisely. Its outcome lived not in crowns or ruins, but in how people remembered, negotiated, and resisted erasure. The war also taught the world to watch the Horn differently. Ottoman interests, Portuguese ambitions, and distant powers now viewed the region not as a frontier, but as a crossroads. Influence arrived wrapped in diplomacy, trade, and promises of protection. External alliances offered opportunity, but also risk. The Horn learned that foreign involvement rarely came without cost. Abyssinia and Adal both navigated this new reality carefully, weighing autonomy against survival. Power was no longer only local, it was entangled. The aftermath of war revealed a harder truth. The Horn now stood not only between empires of faith, but between empires of the world. As borders shifted and alliances changed, memory became the final boundary. What people remembered and how they told their past defined who they were allowed to become. History replaced territory as the most contested space. Stories shaped loyalty. Faith shaped belonging. The war's legacy lived not only in treaties, but in how communities taught their children, honored their dead, and understood their place in the Horn. Memory drew lines that armies no longer could. Between Abyssinia and Adal, remembrance itself became a form of resistance and a warning against forgetting. Abyssinia and Adal did not vanish into history. They endured, changed, scarred, and still shaping the Horn today. Between them lies not only conflict, but continuity. The war did not resolve the region's story, it reframed it. Between empire and resistance, between faith and power, the Horn learned that survival is rarely absolute. It is negotiated, remembered, and carried forward by those who understand that history does not end, it echoes.